Before I begin my prepared remarks, I'd like to just say a few words of thanks to my mother, Susie McCoy, to my wife, Lisa, my beautiful daughters, Hadley, Maddie, and Sammy. Certainly would not be here without you. I love you all very much. To my friends and the community members here today, thank you for joining us in a great community moment. To the faculty and staff, this incredibly dedicated group of individuals who consistently come in to touch the future and to dedicate their lives to doing so, I'm honored to be with you today. To the students, I thank you for that beautiful music, and it's great to have you here. I would simply remind you that you, not I, are the reason that we are here today, and all of the work that happens on this campus is for you and to make certain that you have the most powerful educational experience that we can provide you. To the cabinet and to the President's office staff, I consider myself fortunate to be among you and to be your colleagues. I look forward to the work that we can do together. To the board, I would say thank you for your trust and your faith and for all that you do for DePauw. You can't step on this campus without seeing the impact of this amazing board. To the poets and musicians and our friends in the School of Music, let me say thank you very much for the way your art changes the world. Thank you for being a part of this. We also have two friends with us joining us again after a bit of a hiatus, and it's wonderful to welcome them back. Two people who had a profound impact on DePauw's past and still impact DePauw's future, and that is President Emeritus Bob Bottoms and his wife Gwen. Welcome home. And finally, to my friend and my hero, Vernon Jordan, how honored am I to have you to come and speak at this inauguration event. Now, I have to tell you that when I called a few months ago to ask Vernon if he would speak at this event, and he agreed to do so, I was overjoyed. I don't think my feet touched the ground for several days until it dawned on me that I would have to speak after him. People often ask me if it's difficult to be a college president these days, and I say it's particularly difficult at DePauw because it's always your responsibility to deliver the last speech, and you have a lot of brilliant people to follow, and today is no exception. Mr. Jordan, you do me and DePauw a great honor, and thank you. Today presents a special opportunity to celebrate, to commemorate, to remember DePauw. 20 times in 180 years, DePauw has found itself at a moment like this, a moment to reflect. And I would like to use my portion of that moment to reflect on the idea of DePauw and the ideal DePauw. Between the idea and the ideal exists a delta, a distance that we want to see ever smaller every time we meet at a moment such as this. And that work remains before us. The idea of this university began, as Mayor Dorey reminded us, 180 years ago this month. The idea that a college this far west, quote, to be conducted on the most liberal principles, accessible to all religious denominations, and designed for the benefits of the citizens in general, was an ambitious idea 180 years ago, and it is no less so today. The idea of this university truly began even before 1836, and the ideal university has been in construction ever since. Now, this construction includes the obvious and visible efforts, such as the Wallace Stewart Commons in the beautiful Hoover Hall that we dedicated yesterday, the Welch Fitness Center and Revis Stadium, so recently completed, and the Stewart Plaza that we will see next fall. Yet they are only a part of it. The ideal DePauw has been in construction since 1837 through the efforts of faculty, staff, students, and alumni, as we heard from our distinguished faculty, staff, student, and alumni speakers today. In 1867, Betty Locke Hamilton felt the ideal university would be coeducational, and she proved her point in her poignant commencement address. George Washington Ziegler and Tucker Esseley Wilson believed all races would be welcomed and supported in the ideal college and paved our way for our ongoing work in diversity and inclusion. Faculty in 1866 suggested the ideal college would not be so strictly structured and should allow electives into the curriculum. And alumnus John Ng convinced 4 Japanese students to travel to Indiana in 1877 and enroll here because he believed the ideal college would be international. In the 1830s and 40s, the students felt the ideal university would have literary societies and Greek societies. Edward Rector believed the ideal college would attract the best and brightest students regardless of their financial situation. And in each of these instances, the ideal university became more real and more tangible. And this continues to this day. When people speak of DePauw, they refer to many things: the place, East College, Emerson, Peeler, the curriculum. But DePauw is, most importantly, our people. If you have taught here, thought here, lived here, loved here, worked here, touched here, you are DePauw. We, all of us gathered together today, are DePauw. And it is to us then to strive ceaselessly and caringfully toward the ideal DePauw. Indeed, the ideal DePauw becomes more real through the efforts of individuals. Winona Welch taught here from 1930 to 1961, and there's an exhibit on her in Julian that includes a line from an article about her in Britannica. The many awards and honors she received in the course of a long, distinguished career as a scientist pleased her deeply, but somehow one expects that the honor that touched her heart most deeply was to be considered one of the outstanding teachers at DePauw University. Dorothy Brown dedicated her life to education, and DePauw is closer to the ideal because of that work. Andrea Sununu has become a legend on this campus for her fastidious devotion to her students, not to mention her scurrying across campus with armloads of papers to grade. And DePauw is closer to the ideal because of that devotion. Tony Robertson has been a leader in facilities management for over 30 years, and DePauw is closer to the ideal because of that leadership. The list goes on and on. Steve Trulask believed students should study abroad and created Servicio. Tim and Sharon Ubben decided to bring the world to DePauw through the Ubben Lectures. Judson and Joyce Green decided to show the world a new method of music education through a beautiful building and the 21st Century Musician Initiative. Don and Barbara Daskey decided to guarantee that the DePauw education was within reach for all through their support of the DePauw Trust. With each step, DePauw moves closer to the ideal. On this campus, Bill Bond served as carpenter for 35 years. Dick Shuck has been serving DePauw for 40 years, Orsina Smith for 41, Paige Cotton 44, Louis Moger 46. Maureen Karkeek has impacted many, including my children, and the children of many of us gathered here, and has been doing so at DePauw for 65 years. The ideal, much like the horizon, is always just out of reach. Robert Browning taught us that our reach should exceed our grasp, else what's a heaven for? And that's an excellent mantra for DePauw. Several years ago, a car company developed a tagline that makes me think not of cars, but of DePauw, the relentless pursuit of perfection. As DePauw, as we pursue perfection, we bring DePauw ever closer to the ideal. When we diversify our faculty, staff, and students, we move closer to the ideal. When we create the McDermott, Pulliam, Hubbard, and Tenzer Centers and the Prindle Institute, we move closer to the ideal. When we strive to make every student on this campus feel welcomed and wanted, we move closer to the ideal. When we realize there is no them, we are only us, and we are DePauw, one DePauw. We move closer to the ideal. Ralph Waldo Emerson told us that to know even one life has breathed easier because you existed is to have succeeded. By that definition, DePauw has succeeded 100,000 times over. DePauw has been a beacon of hope and opportunity that has changed countless lives and continues to change lives every day. And our good and important work will never finish. And so we dedicate ourselves at this rare moment of reflection to this work. As we remember DePauw, we must remember, DePauw, that our work is neither perfect nor complete, but is built upon generations of good and noble effort. Efforts that fuel the determination to be ever more perfect, to relentlessly strive toward the ideal DePauw. The next generation of Holtons and Rectors and DePauws are among us today and being created in our classrooms today to ensure that our pursuit of the ideal DePauw never stops. The next generation of Betty Locks and Percy Julians and Fred Murads and Vernon Jordans are among us today and being created in our classrooms today to remind the world why DePauw is so necessary and so needed. This is good and noble work, and I and every one of us here today are blessed to be a part of it. I am honored and humbled to work with each of you to move us ever closer to the ideal DePauw. Thank you.